There she is.
Perfect.
All right, Eiley, if you will grab a piece of paper that you will need. And then other than that, you don't really need anything for this activity. So the reason we're having everyone put their name in backwards is I have no idea how you're going to pronounce that.
Maybe the H is silent.
Maybe.
The H is silent.
Giley?
Giley.
Giley?
Giley.
Giley?
Wow. What was her mother thinking when she named her?
It's a beautiful name.
You mean her dragon mom?
Her
Yeah,
dragon
her
mom.
dragon
Her dragon
mom. What was her dragon mom thinking?
All right. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you guys just for a moment. And so I'm Miss Toby, if you don't know, but today I'm Ebot. And so your dragon name is your name backwards, your mood, but it's the mood, and then it's hoarder of food you last ate and an object on your left. So go ahead and write that down. So today, if you can't tell by my voice, I am Ebot, the less than great and a little bit sickly hoarder of ramen and kittens.
Hilarious.
Huh?
That's hilarious.
I feel like it sounds like it belongs in like a I can't think of his name right now. Not Neil Gaiman, the other one, Terry Pratchett novel. Yep. So if you will come up with your full dragon name, and then we'll go around and we can all share our full dragon names. All right. I'm gonna stop sharing. All right. We'll start with Avilio over here. What's your full dragon name?
My full dragon name's Avilio the Tired, hoarder of life, because I had life cereal this morning, and string.
That sounds straight up like you are a villain.
I am a villain. I will take your life and your string.
Hilarious.
Oh man.
All right. Who else is ready? If you're ready, you can raise your hand. You guys don't have to be mute. If you have yourself muted, you don't have to be. This is like a talking program. So, like, Etzna, are you ready?
Yes, I'm Etzna of the Tired. I am a hoarder of Mentos and iPhones.
Okay. I'm Atina, I guess. I'm Atina the Silly, hoarder of Parmesan spaghetti and envelope opener.
Oh no, a sharp object.
Sharp object.
That's what you should have said, a sharp object.
It's how you
I know. I was looking over there, but everything in that corner is sharp.
Oh. It's
so we will have to tell those that don't know the inside joke. Every time there needs something to be opened or anything, I'm always the one that has the sharp object.
We refer to her as Ice Pick around.
Yes.
There you
go. All right. I'm gonna go with I know that your real name is Eiley, but I'm assuming that your dragon name has a silent H. So, Giley?
You're muted,
sweetheart.
You're muted.
Unmute yourself.
Eiley, you're muted.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
That's okay.
It's however you pronounce the backwards version of my name. The Tired and Lazy and hoarder of Dr. Pepper and cat pillows.
Oh my.
There you go.
Sounds like a comfortable dragon cave.
It does.
Yes, it does. And Dr. Pepper, yummy.
All right.
I suggest the painful hoarder of toast and books.
Toast.
Toast and books. I like
Oh,
it.
I guess dragons would like toast. It'd be easy for them to make.
yeah.
That's true.
I'm feeling painful because of a failed handstand.
Oh no.
Oh, ow.
No. Oh, how bad did you hurt yourself?
Well, it gave me this crick in the back of my neck and on my back.
Oh,
Oh,
sweetie.
no.
Ow.
That does not sound like fun. No handstands for you for the rest of the week.
Yeah, that's what I feel like I don't want to do one ever again.
Let's take a week off from handstands.
Yeah.
All right. So that was our icebreaker for today. This week we've talked about different story elements all summer. We talked about setting our first week, point of view our second week, and last week we talked about characters. So this week we're going to talk about plot, and I actually have a YouTube video I'm going to share with you guys from TED Ed, and so we're just going to watch that together, and then we'll talk a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more, and then and then I have a book talk, and then we will play a game. So that's kind of how it's going to go today, but I'm going to share this video with you, and we'll kind of talk about it after we watch it. So give me just a second. Oh no, I'm stuck in this. Make it go away. There we go. So if you guys don't know about TED Ed, it is a great resource for like super fun educational videos, but it also has, if you're at all interested in mythology, there's this Mythos series I really like that they have made, and it kind of gives you the short version of most classical myths. So let me share my computer sound, and we'll watch this.
What do Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo all have in common with the heroes of ancient myths? What if I told you they are all variants of the same hero? Do you believe that? Joseph Campbell did. He studied myths from all over the world and published a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, retelling dozens of stories and explaining how each represents the monomyth or hero's journey. So, what is the hero's journey? Think of it as a cycle. The journey begins and ends in the hero's ordinary world, but the quest passes through an unfamiliar, special world. Along the way, there are some key events. Think about your favorite book or movie. Does it follow this pattern? Status quo, that's where we start. 1 o'clock, call to adventure. The hero receives a mysterious message, an invitation, a challenge. 2 o'clock, assistance. The hero needs some help, probably from someone older, wiser. 3 o'clock, departure. The hero crosses the threshold from his normal, safe home and enters the special world and adventure. We're not in Kansas anymore. 4 o'clock, trials. Being a hero is hard work. Our hero solves a riddle, slays a monster, escapes from a trap. 5 o'clock, approach. It's time to face the biggest ordeal, the hero's worst fear. 6 o'clock, crisis. This is the hero's darkest hour. He faces death and possibly even dies, only to be reborn. 7 o'clock, treasure. As a result, the hero claims some treasure, special recognition, or power. 8 o'clock, result. This can vary between stories. Do the monsters bow down before the hero, or do they chase him as he flees from the special world? 9 o'clock, return. After all that adventure, the hero returns to his ordinary world. 10 o'clock, new life. This quest has changed the hero. He has outgrown his old life. 11 o'clock, resolution. All the tangled plot lines get straightened out. 12 o'clock, status quo, but upgraded to a new level. Nothing is quite the same once you're a hero. Many popular books and movies follow this ancient formula pretty closely, but let's see how well The Hunger Games fits the hero's journey template. When does Katniss Everdeen hear a call to adventure that gets the story moving? When her sister's name is called from the lottery. How about assistance? Is anyone going to help her on her adventure? Hey, Mitch. What about departure? Does she leave her ordinary world? She gets on a train to the capital. Okay, so you get the idea. What do you have in common with Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo? Well, you're human, just like them. The hero's journey myth exists in all human cultures and keeps getting updated because we humans reflect on our world through symbolic stories of our own lives. You leave your comfort zone, have an experience that transforms you, and then you recover and do it again. You don't literally slay dragons or fight Voldemort, but you face problems just as scary. Joseph Campbell said, "In the cave you fear to enter lies the treasure you seek." What is the symbolic cave you fear to enter? Auditions for the school play? Baseball tryouts? Love? Watch for this formula in books, movies, and TV shows you come across. You will certainly see it again, but also be sensitive to it in your own life. Listen for your call to adventure. Accept the challenge. Conquer your fear and claim the treasure you seek. And then do it all over again.
So again, that was that was from Ted Ed, and clearly hobbits are a joke to this person, and he forgot that they're a separate species. But I thought it was a pretty good overview of one kind of plot. So the hero's journey is just one sort of plot, and when we say plot, we mean the structure of a story. Like I said, all summer we've been talking about different objects and different ways to imagine your own story. So if you're going to write a story or create a comic or make a movie, kind of what are the elements that you need for that? And one of the actual story of the story is a plot. There are a couple different, lots of different kinds of plots. Like I said, the hero journey is one example of a plot. And when we were talking about doing our dragon names, one of the main driving forces of plot is conflict, and it can be something simple. It can be a villain, a dragon, like a monster that has to be killed, and that's a really classic plot. But it can also be something like internal, so there's internal and external conflict, which I know you guys know. So like it can be something like mental health. The thing that you're overcoming in your story could be a mental health problem, or it could be things that aren't as big or grandiose as like I'm going to save the world. It could be I just kind of need to survive high school, and how am I going to do that, which can be a really interesting story. So there are they have tried to make a list, a comprehensive list of the number of possible plots that there are, and I think the highest I've seen is like 67, but then there's more of like people like, well, yeah, but what about this? Does that really fit in there? So there's all kinds of plots, but usually in creative writing classes or things like that, you'll talk about either 7 or 9 basic plot types. So I'm just kind of gonna share with you my notes for this meeting, and we're gonna look a little bit at kind of some examples of different plot types. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever read or seen Lord of the Rings, but if you have, that was what I used for reference. But when I tell you about these plot types, I'd like for you guys to talk to me a little bit. And so I'm going to say, and so the 9 basic plots are overcoming the monster, rags to riches, quest, voyage and return, comedy, tragedy, rebirth, mystery, and rebellion against the one, whatever the evil one or power in the world is. So overcoming the monster is like there is something, could be either a physical monster or a mental monster that the hero has to overcome, or even like a government that the hero has to overcome. So can someone give me an example of a overcoming the monster story?
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo's great. Every episode of Scooby-Doo is an overcoming the monster story.
Yeah.
But it also fits one of our other plot types on here, a mystery, where they have to figure out like what it is. So that's kind of the thing, is that it's all these basic plots, but they're all kind of interweaved with each other. So yes, you have to beat and catch the monster, but then you also have to figure out who or what the monster is. And so that's the mystery plot right there. What about rags to riches? Thinking of someone coming from humble beginnings to a wealthy and fantastic existence at the end.
Well, Cinderella for one,
Yeah.
but also the princess and Rumpelstiltskin.
Yes.
Yes.
Princess and Rumpelstiltskin. Yeah. What about, can we hear from Eileen or Jessica? I know you don't answer to those names.
Oh yeah, I'm the dragon assistant.
Sausage.
I think of a rags
Assistant.
to riches one. Maybe I just haven't read many of those.
Maybe not. Annie, if anyone's seen the play or music, and then it could be a movie, or it doesn't have to be a book. If you can think of a movie or a play or something like that. But we can move on. Can someone give me a story that has a quest?
The Hobbit.
Yes. Well, yes, the Hobbit has a quest. It's There and Back Again is definitely the quest to reclaim the Red Mountain. And what about if you've read, I'm trying to think, like if you've read the Harry Potter, I think Jessica has, the last book where they're reclaiming the Horcruxes and the sorry y'all, like I said a second, the Horcruxes and the Deathly Hallows. That's a quest, like going out to retrieve something. Or I have in here Lord of the Rings, where the quest is to destroy the ring and the fires of Mountain Doom. So can anyone think of a voyage and return?
You know the Iliad and the Odyssey?
Yes, that's like the most classic example of a voyage and return plots.
There's an old book called Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, which was made into a movie.
What about Journey to the Center of the Earth?
Yeah.
Anyone has seen or read those? Basically, anything by Jules Verne is most of those are Voyage and Return books.
Somebody in the Golden Fleece. What?
Jason.
In the
Golden Fleece,
Yep.
Frozen.
Frozen. Yeah, Frozen is a book. Yep.
Yeah.
What about so a comedy? When we talk about a comedy plot, is typically a plot that has some fun elements, but it also typically has a happy ending. Like so, classically, like Shakespeare wrote comedies, tragedies, and histories, right? So the tragedies almost always ended with deaths, and comedies almost always ended with a wedding. Now that's not true of all comedies, but it's a good like gauge for most comedy stories have a happy ending of some sort.
And Percy Jackson has a lot of comedy in it. Like sarcastic comedy.
Yeah. Or like when you say something's like a comedy of errors, so sometimes the plot of a story can simply be like crazy, outrageous things happening to a character and them trying to deal with that in like a fun and silly way. So if we could think of any stories like that.
Like maybe Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yes, definitely. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy falls under that. Or Diary of a Wimpy Kid kind of falls in that thing too. Captain Underpants. All of those those silly like J fiction stories tend to fall under a comedy sort of thing. All right, so a tragedy.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, Romeo and Juliet.
I was gonna say lots of Shakespeare.
Lots of Shakespeare. But can you think of anything more recent that is a tragedy? Like basically the book where the ending made you cry or feel bad, or the movie where the ending made you cry or feel that's a tragedy. Old Yeller or
where the red fern grows.
I would say Infinity War.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
Infinity War is definitely a tragedy.
Yes, that's definitely a good example. Like I said, you can feel free to draw on movies or anything really. So a rebirth story, and this one's kind of like complex, but it's basically uh, can be something where there's something magical that happens, where someone comes back from the dead, but it can also be where someone grows and changes into a new person or being. So. For this, I have the transformation of Gollum. And so it's like that's a kind of a sad rebirth story where, like Schmeagol, the Hobbit, becomes Gollum, which is I think that's the order.
How about Shrek?
Yes, yeah, we talked about Shrek last week as an anti-hero, but yeah, so
Exactly.
Shrek does actually become a hero at the end of
Yep.
his story. He goes out after especially in the movies, and the book just kind of ends. But he goes out
Yeah.
after having saved reclaimed his swamp, and he's like, I kind of liked doing good things, and
Yep.
goes back out and does more good things. So that's an example of a rebirth story.
Heartless is a really good rebirth story,
Yes.
but you can't exactly say anything about it
Or
for
you
those who haven't read it.
right.
Yeah.
But so we know that exists. So we talked a little bit about Scooby-Doo being a mystery. Does anyone really like mystery novels? Can we think of some more
Nancy
mystery
Drew.
plots? Nancy
Yep.
Drew, yeah.
Hardy Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Treehouse. Magic Treehouse.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
They tend to be mysteries. Can we think of I'm trying to think of some other more modern mystery stories.
There's also like TV shows like CSI kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
like so CSI or
Gravity
um
Falls.
Gravity Falls. Yeah, so Gravity
love
Falls
that
is definitely a mystery. Or has elements of mystery. All right, and so then the other major a plot point we want to talk about is rebellion against the One. So the One in Lord of the Rings is Sauron. The One in Harry Potter is Voldemort. The One in let me think.
Hunger
can't
Games is the
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say the one
the
can also
capital.
be. It can
Yeah.
also be like a societal structure or
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
man, or because I was thinking of the outsiders.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like so the
Or the
rebellion
Giver.
against
Mm-hmm.
or
Oh,
the
yes.
giver. So the one could
Or A Wrinkle in Time.
definitely be a government. What were you saying, Jess?
Or A Wrinkle in Time. Because
Yes, it's another good one.
The One could be an entire other planet.
Yep.
So those are our 9 basic plots. And so just when you guys are thinking about, sometimes it helps to have like all right, so for this character, and like you said, you can mix and match them. So kind of what I have here for Lord of the Rings, rags to riches. Like characters have their own little mini side plots. It can be anything. And Lord of the Rings for rags to riches, let's say Tolkien took his characters and was like, all right, so Aragorn is going to follow this plot. He's going to go from being Strider of the forest. I mean, he was born into this family, but he had left, and then he goes back to be king. So that's that rags to riches story for Aragorn. And then he was like, well, Boromir is going to start up high, and he's going to go through these things that like kind of degrade his character, and then he's going to have a moment of enlightenment, like goodness, like becoming good again, and then he's going to die. And that's very much a tragedy of like he came from a good place, went steadily downhill, kind of came up again, and then and died giving his life in a moment of like redemption for like what some of the things that he had done. You kind of take all of those different plot points and put them together, and you end up with like a really great epic story. Or you can focus on one, and that can be a really great story too. But you'll probably end up incidentally or intentionally ending up with aspects of all different plots. So those are kinds of plots. And then the other thing that I think is fun to talk about is, or the thing we should talk about is plot structure. Um, and so in most stories, plot has a basic, this basic structure. Now, that doesn't mean that this is the only, like, you know, this structure can waver. It can act kind of, I'm talking with my hands and you can't see me, but can kind of act like a roller coaster. You can have repetitions of this, like you might just get through exposition and then do from conflict to falling action several times before you finally get to resolution, because other things will spring up. But the basic idea of the plot of a story is that you have the exposition, which is your introduction to character and setting. Okay, your introduction to character and setting. So we'll use Cinderella as our example here. So your introduction to Cinderella is, there once was a young girl whose mother had died and lived with her father and was very happy. Tends to be your normal first introduction to Cinderella. And then you get your conflict, which is the problem that sets the story in motion, until her evil stepmother came and married her father, and then her father passed away. And so that's the beginning of the conflict. Um, and so your rising action kind of that falls in between there is the ball is coming up. Like, you know, Cinderella has this kind of terrible life, and like subservient to her godmother, or to her stepmother. And then you kind of have, and then the invitation to the ball comes. And so the climax is Cinderella figuring out how she's, like, you know, there's that rising action of her figuring out how she's going to get to the ball, and the climax is the ball itself. So you kind of have this rising action, but within the rising action there's these little repeats of, like, all right, so life with the godmother is awful, more or less. And then there's the introduction of the ball, so that's a conflict because her sisters don't want her to go to the ball. But then there's a little bit of her figuring out how to get there till you get to the main conflict, the main climax of the story, which is her going to the ball itself and meeting the prince. And so then you kind of have the falling action of the prince going out to find Cinderella. And when he finds her, you have the resolution where everyone gets married and gets happy and is happy. Well, the Cinderella and the prince are happy. By most accounts, the stepmother and stepsisters die terrible deaths in the original story. So, sorry. So that's kind of like a brief, brief overview of how plot structure works. But if you kind of look at it, even in a simple story like Cinderella, you use this multiple times over the course of the story. So you have your exposition, which is your introduction to the story, your conflict, which is the problem that sets the story in motion, your rising action, which are parts of the story that develop the problem or conflict through a series of events that build interest and or suspense. Your climax is your turning point in the story where the problem reaches its peak. And then the falling actions events after the climax. So that's your resolution of the story, and it's not really resolution, it's your falling action. So you have the things that come out of the climax, the results you have to deal with of, like, okay, well, we killed the dragon, what now? Like, what happens in the town, what are the repercussions of the climax. And so you kind of have that. And then the resolution is the conclusion of the story that is kind of reveals you get this, not for me, the resolution is more of the problem has been solved and this is what happens after. But it can also introduce new conflict. So this is when you get your cliffhanger in most books. Like, so if you're writing a series, your resolution isn't going to be, I tied everything up in a neat bow. It's going to have like a little bit of a, oh, but wait, kind of deal going on. So that's kind of a brief overview of really, really basic plot structure. But as I was saying, even with a simple story, it's not that simple. Okay, so I have a quick book talk for you guys that I want to share with you. If anyone has any questions about that, we can do that as well. And Olivia's going to read for me because But I'm going to share my screen. But Olivia's going to read for me because my voice is kind of going. So let me share this. That is the wrong button. All right. So this is a choose your own adventure book, which I think is a fun way to play with plot. So we're gonna share with you. This is available on Hoopla, I want to say. Yeah, it's available on Hoopla, and you'll be able to access it with your library card if you decide you like it.
All right, so this is Romeo and or Juliet, a choosable path adventure by Ryan North and William Shakespeare. And you, because you decide what happens next, not to mention all the artists who made some great illustrations. So really, there's a lot of credit go around here, and all that doesn't even mention the editors, designers, typesetters, all of whom do important work that goes unacknowledged too often.
And the
Published
publisher
by
is
Riverhead Books in New York.
all right. Boom. All right.
A man can die but once. William Shakespeare, Henry IV. Hold up, this book is crazy. Don't read this book like a regular book. You'll get confused and angry. This is a choose your own path kind of book, which means that at the end of each node, is that supposed to be mode or node?
A node and node.
Okay. At the end of each node, you'll either die or the story will be over and you should start over. Or you'll have a choice of what to do next. Your reader also has a back button, either a physical button on the device or one that appears on the screen. This button returns you to the page you just came from, which is insanely useful whenever you want to take a move back. Okay, I think we're ready. Let's make our first choice. Start the book.
So should we click start the book or should we just turn the page? I need votes from the audience.
I vote start the book.
Okay. All right.
As we now know, William Shakespeare was well known for borrowing from existing literature when writing his plays. Our previous publication, To Be or Not to Be, that is The Adventure, firmly established that the award-winning play Hamlet, I know, turns out there were awards for plays, was lifted wholesale from that recently rediscovered text. We suggested then that To Be or Not to Be was both the earliest example of the book as game genre, as well as the first instance ever in the then newish English language that was kicking around of an adventure being chosen by you, the reader. We were wrong. This book, which you are now about to enjoy, really is that earliest example of nonlinear second-person narratives that are more fun than they sound. We did some more research. It's true this time. When Shakespeare sat down to write Romeo and Juliet, he had a choice. He could make up his own story, or he could flip through this book, Romeo and or Juliet, and just stone cold copy down what he read. As we know now,
That one was now no.
Okay. I don't know what's happening with my eyes. Let me just scoot closer, shall I? As we now know, he chose the latter. This book he plagiarized from was lost until recently, when I found it again. It was just over there. Someone had put a coat over it, which I think was why we didn't notice it earlier. Romeo and or Juliet is presented here with the original text, unaltered from when Shakespeare stole it. All we've added are some rad illustrations, and we also put adorable little hearts next to the choices Shakespeare made when plagiarizing this book. That way, if you follow the path when you make a choice, you'll get the same play that Shakespeare ended up with. However, that is not the only story in this book, and honestly, a lot of the others are way better. Feel free to explore your other options, as there are over lots of distinct adventures contained within this book. Though, to be fair, after the first quintillion, a lot of them are probably going to seem pretty familiar. Now, prepare yourself for what's called the greatest love story ever told for some reason. Gingerly place your emotions into the front car of the roller coaster. Strap them in tight, kiss them on the forehead, and tell them you love them and that you'll see them soon. Too late. This is the emotional roller coaster just got started. Whoa, this is going to be insane. Oh, Romeo and or Juliet, oh, Romeo and or Juliet, wherefore art thou, Romeo and or Juliet? So, intelligent and well-informed reader of interactive fiction, what would you like to do now? Option A. Get the
Go ahead.
Okay. Option A. Get the book spoiled for you right off the bat. B. Play without spoilers. Or C. Learn more about the author.
So we'll stop there. But as you can tell, this book is a choose your own adventure book. So we can go ahead and make the first choice. We're probably not going to read it, but we'll vote. Who would like to get the book spoiled for them right off the bat? All right. Who would like to play without spoilers?
Me.
Play without spoilers.
Denise wants to play without spoilers. All right. Would anyone like to learn more about the author? All right, we got one vote for play without spoilers, so we'll click it. All right, so this is kind of how, I don't know if you guys have ever played a choose your own adventure book before. So this is going to start a completely different story, which I'll leave you guys to discover for yourself. The book is available on Hoopla.
That's beautiful.
It's really funny. It's super fun to play through. They end up in space and fighting ninjas at one point. So it's,
Cool.
you know.
That's pretty cool.
It's kind of fun. But if you've never played a choose your own adventure book before, actually I shared an article on our Facebook we shared an article on our Facebook earlier today about the different plot paths available in a choose your own adventure book. And I think that they're really fun because you get to choose what happens next. So now that we have talked extensively about plot and we've talked about different books that let you explore plot a little more than usual, I want to play a game. And this is kind of an improv game, if anyone has ever heard of or participated in improv. And it is called the sentence game. And so the way that this is going to work is that we are going to go around, and I guess I will start, and everyone's going to tell one sentence of a story. And so we'll just do it normal the first way. And so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us, I suppose. And so we'll do it normal the first time, and then I'm gonna give us a little bit of a challenge with it. So once upon a time, there was a dragon who lived by the sea. Olivia.
The dragon hated sea turtles, but the sea was infested with sea turtles.
Miss Annette.
In the middle of all the sea turtles was a raccoon in a leaf that he used as a boat.
Jessica.
The raccoon was the general of the army of sea turtles when they fought against the dragon.
Eiley.
The battle against the battle of the sea turtles and the dragons, led by the raccoon, was a vicious battle, and surprisingly, the turtles won.
All right, Miss Denise.
In celebration, the sea turtles gathered and came closely ashore where they met up with their friends, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and had a turtle dance party.
All right. So, all right, we kind of did this
Stop
time.
mentioning the dragon at all.
No, the dragon was defeated. Eileen handled that.
I know.
He was defeated by the raccoon's turtle army.
Yep.
Oh, I don't know why, but I interpreted it as the turtles just defeated the raccoon for some reason.
No.
No, they defeated
He
the
was
dragon.
the general.
All right.
Okay,
So-
I got it now.
He was in charge of that army.
If we can kind of remember. So this time, we'll each take a part of the plot, I believe. So, let me think. Exposition, conflict, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. Yes, there are 6 of those. There are 6 of us. So, as I did last time, I'll take the exposition since that is the start. Olivia will introduce our conflict. Miss Annette will take our rising action, which is where the conflict develops, sort of like the raccoon becoming the commander of the sea turtle army. Jessica, you're going to take our climax, which I suppose would be the battle, but we're going to do a different story this time. Eiley, you'll have our falling action, which is where all of our plot lines kind of start getting tied up in the action, and then Miss Denise will have our resolution, which is the aftermath and or the cliffhanger for the next story. So I'll start with let's not do a once upon a time. There was a woman who had a lot of cats in downtown San Francisco.
That's a wild beginning.
She didn't have enough money to feed her cats.
Oh, do I do climax? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have
So
Jessica.
she
You're gonna
didn't have enough money to
Yeah.
feed her cats. So she had to put on her thinking cap to get out of this predicament. She looked out the window and saw Miss Jessica.
All right, Miss Jessica. What did she see? How is she getting out of this predicament? That will be our
Oh, okay.
climax.
See, she saw a helicopter go by right under her window, so she jumped on it.
Jumped on it. Okay.
Yeah, she jumped out the window onto the helicopter.
All right. So Eiley, your challenge is to answer, how does this provide money for her cats? You can use more than one sentence if you need to. This is a challenge.
Uh-huh.
I've got nothing to work with here. I don't know what she's doing. She's got on this helicopter, and now what?
What if the helicopter belonged to a group of bank robbers?
Oh, the helicopter was owned by bank robbers off to rob a bank. So she joined them in their bank heist, and in turn became a millionaire, and thus having a lot of money to feed her kid.
All right, Miss Denise, take our resolution. Take it away.
So, kids, the moral of the story is, number 1, don't get more cats than you can feed. Number 2, be careful whose helicopter you jump into. And number 3, there are still rags to riches stories in the world.
That's good.
All right. So that's kind of how that works. I hope that was moderately fun for you guys.
Okay, so now I realize why there's usually only one author to a story.
No, I like these. These are awesome. These are like movie worthy. I see that one becoming, let's see.
A bestseller.
Yeah, exactly. We could be billionaires just from telling our 3-sentence story.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh,
At least we aren't
But-
robbing banks.
That's yes. This is
This is true. We're not robbing banks.
Well, if it's for cats, everybody will agree.
Yes.
All
I
right.
would rob a bank for my cat.
Okay. So, thank you guys
back to
for,
you, Toby.
for joining us this
No,
week.
it's
from the
Ebot.
helicopter pilot. Back to you at the studio.
Thank you guys for joining us this week. If you are not signed up for our summer library program, please do so. Just go to www.stplwv.org/summer 2020. I'm going to put it into the chat to everyone so that you can sign up for summer reading if you have read any books so far this summer. But have not been signed up. I invite you to log those books that you have read this summer.
Yes, indeed.
Go ahead and do that. So our sign up link for our is https.
Also, while you're in there, Miss Toby,
Mhm.
if you will put the secret
I
code.
will do that. I was planning on that. scplwv.org /summer
.org.
Yes.
.org.
And the thing to remember too, because I know you guys are all reading anyway. So every time you log one of your books in there, for every 5 books you read, you get a ticket towards our wall of prizes. And you
Mhm.
definitely want to check out our wall of prizes for your age group this year. We've got a lot of neat things in there that you could win. So take a few minutes, sign up, log your books. It'll be an absolute fun time. I think a lot of people. I think Jessica won prizes one year off the wall, didn't you, Jess?
Yeah, I won a lava lamp.
Yep.
It's in my
See?
room right now.
And
Yeah,
the
you just never know what you're going to win off of the wall of prizes. So
not that circumstances being what they are and people not being able to get to the library, we do have slightly less teens and a similar number of teen prizes available this year, so your chances of winning are much higher.
yeah,
So if you would like to sign up, but our secret code this week is Land of Make Believe. It's all caps, just like last week, and you put that in and that gets you an extra ticket for our wall of prizes as well. So Eiley, feel free to ask us about signing up, but also Olivia knows
Yeah.
how. So you're welcome to meet with her about that. But yeah, that's more or less it for this week. I hope that wasn't a painful experience. Again, sorry I'm not on camera this week. I'm just feeling kind of gross.
yeah.
So
So,
we
and
will-
also remember too, even if you can't make it to the library, we have all kinds of online books and resources that you can read. So
Mhm.
if you need assistance once you get your library card, or if you don't have a library card with us, let one of us know, and you can actually fill out a form on our webpage now, and we can get you your library card and your PIN number so you can read some of the things online.
And if you're interested in reading that, and it's on WV Deli, which is one of our free resources from our library. If you're interested in reading more of that zany Romeo and Juliet nonsense, feel free to check that out as well. It's in the chat now.
Yep.
So feel free to go in there and click on borrow, and you'll be able to read that as well. But yeah.
Also, if you're rereading a book that you liked in the past, that also counts towards it.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't have to
Yeah.
be a new book. It can also graphic novels. So if you're into manga or into graphic novels, feel free to add those as well.
And we
those
also
all
have
count.
a lot. We also have a lot of audiobooks that you can
Mhm.
stream, and you can count your audiobooks as well.
So anything you read this summer, please add it to the list. And as long as you read at least 5, you'll be able to win some prizes. And you've got 3 more weeks to do that. So I believe in you guys. You can do it. But yeah, that's more or less it for this week. Thank you guys for coming, and hope to see
Just
you next week.
one more
one more thing.
reminder.
We have an
We
announcement.
don't have programs next week.
Oh, we
Next
don't
week
have
is
next week.
considered our passive program because of the 4th of July holiday. So
Mhm.
check out our Facebook page or Snapchat or Twitter or Instagram, and we'll have some activities on there you can check out and some book recommendations. But this program will be again 2 weeks from today, which is June the 9th.
Mhm.
So you can plan to.
July
I'm
the
sorry.
July the
Sorry,
9th.
July the 9th.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So next
Not if
week
the time
we'll be
machine
on a
works.
break. Indeed. Indeed. So thank you guys for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing